we ready? Let me move it.
I always like
You should
Bob's
run for
comment,
president.
always wore tie up shoes
You should
so
run
that he
for
could always claim in court that, I'm sorry,
My shoes are tied.
I was tying my shoe time of the accident. Remember that?
Who said that?
Bob,
No, Bob Ray's.
Bob Brace.
Turn the volume down a bit.
You want me?
A little, is that,
Yeah,
that's plenty laughing. I talked to him about calls and he said it was.
Or more.
That's good. Joe Smith, does that volume good for you?
He was like, yeah, it's really cool, but now.
Really?
So it'd be really cool to talk to him now.
I'm wearing my prosthetics.
Huh?
Sharon Mayer's here.
I didn't bring mine tonight.
Now, are you muted still?
Mhm.
So look.
Button space mute currently audio settings button menu right at mute currently unmuted alt Q button audio now unmuted meeting information button leave alt plus Q button notes button leave meeting information button shift caps lock on intent left panel caps lock off caps lock on caps lock off view button mute currently unmuted audio settings button menu start my video alt plus V button space camera on video now stop my video alt plus V stop my video alt plus V button
Okay, hopefully.
video settings button menu stop my video audio setting mute currently unmuted view button
Maybe.
plus A button space mute currently unmuted alt plus A view button audio meeting information button view button mute currently unmuted audio settings button menu stop my video alt plus V button video settings
Yeah, there should be audio and video. What did I do? I can do it another way. Oh, here they are. Good.
Tech challenges,
Set up
Pete.
12, 9.
Oh, all kinds of them. Sorry. I know you're hearing me in the background here.
1, 2, 3.
This is Karen, by the way.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Doing okay, thanks. Looks like you're doing fine other than the technical problems.
Well, it's just I've got a headset on because if my computer talks, I don't want you guys to hear it.
Sure, sure.
they've just given me a new app that allows me to align my phone so that I know whether it's seeing my face or not before I ever join these meetings, which is really kind of
Okay.
cool.
Got it, got it.
All right, got that. I do believe I'm good to go.
All righty. Now all they gotta do is let us in.
Yeah, really. Oh, that's right. You're on Zoom also. Yeah, I thought about coming over tonight and Mark contacted me at the last minute, but I've had a furnace guy in all afternoon. Our furnace decided it survived the cold snap, but then it died afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Let's see. Oh, good. Looks like we just popped up with somebody sitting in the conference room.
okay,
Super.
we're getting there. So I will
Yeah.
try to mute this quickly. I've got a chihuahua that loves to bark, so hopefully she
Oh.
won't. Oh my God, the little guy. She's a handful, but she's full of love and everything else. So
Well, I don't know that I've ever known a really mellow chihuahua, but they have their
they're
good-
not mellow, no. This one was a rescue, which makes it even worse. They got her out of Fresno and they took her out of a kill shelter. So we were very, very happy that
Wow. Good for you. Lucky her.
What'd you name her, Pete?
Shadow, because she follows us around the house all the time.
Perfect.
Her,
Okay,
her
guys, Karen
original
Hines
name
Kelly.
was Suki, S-U-K-I. It's a Japanese name, I think for love, if I remember right. But then we decided, like after 2 days, all she would do was follow us. There was nowhere we could go where she wouldn't follow us. So I said, okay, Shadow is her name. And she responded to it really quickly, which was
That's
very
great.
cool.
That's the hard part, getting her to respond to it.
Yeah.
That's my wife. My wife just refers to me as, hey, dummy.
Oh,
That's
my-
between us, by the way. That's between us.
I get it.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, right. I got
Okay.
that message when it started. I may duck away for a minute. My wife's putting together a sandwich for me, so I'll duck away for a couple of minutes if I disappear,
Okay.
but I'll be back.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Laura, good to kind of see you.
Howdy.
It's good to see your initials anyway.
Laura has one of the prettiest faces I've ever seen, but she should let us see
Oh
it
my
more
God.
often.
Why are my initials up there instead of my name? I can't figure out how to, what did I do? I think it's because I sign in with Google and that's what's
Oh.
on Google.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
You can change that within Zoom. Mine used to say Blair C, and I figured out how to make it say Chris, and now I probably couldn't figure out how to make it say anything else, but.
Yeah. The technology these days. Okay, so anybody else on the phone from the committee? Okay, we got three in the room here. Let's go around. Tim, you want to start?
Sure. My name's Tim Benz. I represent Clackamas County.
Jerry Gersbach and I represent the noise office. I'm Kelly Sweeney, and I represent the city of Portland in the Beaumont Wilshire neighborhood.
And my name is Chris Blair, and like Jerry, I'm also here from the Port of Portland Noise Management Team Office.
Hello, I am Mina Moore Gonzalez, and I am the Community Impact Program Coordinator.
And I'm Mark Clark, and I represent Troutdale, Fairview, and Wood Village.
Joe Smith representing Multnomah County, and I live in the Irvington neighborhood.
And I'm Mike Finch, Vice Chair, representing Multnomah County at large. I live in Southwest Grafton.
Great, and Karen?
I'm Karen Meyer and I represent City of Portland. I live in the Hazelwood neighborhood, right under the southeast flight path out of PDX.
Laura?
My name is Laura Young. I represent City of Portland and I live in the Coley neighborhood.
Brian?
Hello, Brian Sweeney, Portland Police Bureau Air Support Unit.
Unfortunately for Brian, he and I are no connection. And Pete, I think Pete went off to grab his sandwich. So we can introduce him when he gets back. Okay, minutes?
He's there. We just can't hear him. He's muted.
Oh, we don't have a, We don't have a quorum can't go to the minutes.
No, you can't approve them, it doesn't look like.
No,
Are all those names here?
no,
No, we're too short.
They're not here.
they're not here.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Am I muted or not now?
No, we
No.
can hear you, Pete.
You can or cannot?
We can.
Okay. And I'm Pete DeVasto. I'm an at-large member. I live in the Summer Place neighborhood, about 5 miles east of PDX. So I get both the southeast departures and the western arrivals.
You get one more attendee that pops up a little bit later, then I think you'd have 9.
Okay.
Somebody else do a head count, probably to approve that and to tell me that I'm correct about that or not.
Okay, so we'll jump over the adopt the minutes since we don't have a quorum yet. And do you want to go over the ground rules?
Mina, could you bring up that slide for me, please?
what do we need, 9 for a forum?
Yes.
You know, somehow I don't always get the minutes. I do not recall getting them at all.
Karen, do a search on Chris's name. They're in an attachment about a week ago. If you need the exact date, let me know.
Yeah, hang on, let me double check, but it's not doing, this there.
Okay, somebody on the Zoom, can you hear me?
No,
Hello?
everybody speaking once.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, here we go. So can you see the screen also?
No.
Go to. You see it now?
Hello?
Yeah,
Sorry, I don't see a screen. Does anyone see a screen?
Go to Zoom and go share screen.
We're trying, hold on.
I see Joe. Hi, Joe.
So try that one, the next option. That one. Share screen, hit the green, that. There you go. Yeah, for Karen, I think. What is going on. And then you'll have to, when you get it up on there, then minimize that. Just hit share. Let's try it. And now minimize Zoom. How about, can you guys see it now?
There's,
Can we see that?
Laura, can you see that?
Yes.
All right, so we got the ground rules up now on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So just a reminder, speak to the issue, not the person. Speak to the issue they are relevant to this committee only. Speak in a way that all can hear and understand. Respect the time of 3 minutes per person during comment period. Remember that the committee will process comments and may not respond to this meeting. You may submit a comment without addressing the committee. All responses to comments will be included in the meeting minutes. And as a public forum, we are required under House Bill 2560 to offer both in-person and virtual attendance options for both committee and community members. Virtual attendance by camera is encouraged, but not required.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Public comment time. Anybody want to have the floor?
You want me to stop the share?
So I'll ask again, can you guys hear me on the bridge? If you want to speak, if you're in the public, go ahead and speak now.
Hi, this is Elena Burgazova. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me? Somehow I lost the screen, so. Okay, all right. So I just wanted to, since we have only 3 minutes per person, I was wondering if we have only me and no one else, and I could use 15 minutes designated on the agenda. If not, I'll try 3 minutes. So
You're limited to 3 minutes.
Okay, so we are following up on our issue of airplanes noise, and we're wondering why our requests and cries for help are not being addressed and responded. They're just being ignored. So this is my comment for today for 3 minutes. Kelly, I got your email, I responded. And I sent a couple of screenshots of the flight path that do work for us. And we're wondering if we can have a community roundtable with the FAA and discuss this. We've been requesting this for 3 years now, and to this day, we don't have any progress on resolving this issue. So we are asking for help. Please keep working with us to the issue resolution.
Elena, I just got the pictures that you sent.
Mhm.
It appears that from those pictures, there arrivals and departures from Portland. Those appear to be air traffic control vectors that are not on the RNAV arrival. I believe you sent one arrival and 3 departures that have to go back. But those are not typical of the standard departure procedures. I'm not sure what can be done to make those the standard, but those are kind of one-off procedures that I don't think the FAA would adopt.
But this means it's possible, right?
It depends on the traffic. It's hard to explain. It's a huge puzzle where all these pieces have to fit in together. And in some situations, they can allow an airplane, for example. I believe you have one that made the turn around what we call Kelly Point, and then flew straight to the southeast. That's allowed when there's not traffic conflicting with that, and that may or may not be rare.
How about late night when the skies are free and we're still having this huge cargo plane flying over our house and disturbing our sleep? Why can't this be at least alleviated? You know, if we can't resolve the flight path, then also private planes, Air Academy is flying everything across our house in our area. So we're just thinking, okay, commercial flight path could fly, you know, this is a merciless stream over our area, but if this cannot be resolved, then at least the smaller planes could be resolved to avoid our area.
Yeah, unfortunately, since they're not being controlled, they're not under instrument flight rules, they're not being controlled, they just have to steer clear of the Portland airspace. So they kind of go where they want.
Well, something is drawing them here because there are a lot of flight paths, you know, they could fly straight somewhere and they're still coming and making a turn exactly in this area. So we are not understanding this would technically, you know, what's drawing in, but this is what we feel, that everything is just tends to be here. And it's
When
not
you're talking about small airplanes, how small are you talking about? Single engine small airplanes, or are you talking about?
private ones, Air Academy, private ones, they just make a turn here instead of avoiding us.
Because if you're talking about just small single engine airplanes, there are very, very few of them going into PDX.
Ms. Burgazova,
Virtually none.
the airplanes that you're speaking of that are turning, as you say, are they turning to and heading towards the west?
Any direction, and they could make a U-turn here, not past us, not before us, right above us. They're making a U-turn, you know. And it's a key question, why is this happening to us? I mean, why couldn't they avoid us? Why nobody controls this?
Recreational pilots can fly anywhere that's not restricted. And they just happen to, they fly in ways that they fly to just look at the scenery, they turn here and there, they might want to fly over something specific that they're showing a friend that's in the airplane with them. There's all kinds of reasons why they just fly patterns that aren't what you'd see is standard kind of approaches in and out of PDX. They just fly for fun. They just fly to look at things.
And I can,
Under no control at all.
and I can tell you for certain that virtually none, and I would guess not more than 2 a month, are going either in or out of PDX. There are a lot of them will be going to Hillsborough, probably most of them to Hillsborough that are local, some of them at Twin Oaks. And that's just, and Aurora, possibly Aurora, although the Aurora folks wouldn't be sightseeing up here, they'd just be going someplace. The reason nobody's going into PDX is because Atlanta has very steep fees for landing and going through the door.
And fuel price.
How about cargo feeders that are flying across our area also? Amerifly, well, was APC or FedEx, everything goes here.
That's good. Anybody else wants?
Okay, Elena, your time's up. Anybody else want to make a comment?
I'm just assuming they're not cargo haulers either.
Yeah, she just said they're cargo
Oh,
haulers.
the cargo haulers, well. Cargo haulers are whenever they can are landing on the crosswind runway. So that's gonna change their approach significantly.
I think she's talking about the bigger cargo jets that are coming in on the standard arrival.
Ms. Petrano, would you like to make a comment?
Yes. I'm out here in Wilkes, basically 162nd and Sandy. And since the last meeting, I've spoken to both Jerry and Chris about a potential opportunity to make a proposal where the FAA could use the river approach more frequently to avoid the low arrivals over this area. So like to stay updated on that and want to thank you guys for working on this.
We will make sure we let you know. So we will eventually try to formalize a proposal to be submitted from the Port of Portland to the FAA for an instrument approach that would emulate what used to be used in the sort of in the distant past, not so much anymore anyway, called the Mill Visual. We wouldn't be proposing anything new because that's very difficult to do, but what we do is look for an instrument version of an existing visual approach procedure. And we go ahead, Mike.
Well, there is an existing instrument procedure. And I can't remember, I believe it's the RNAV Yankee to runways 28 left and 28 right. Those require special equipment and special aircrew certification. I would say a lot of the aircraft that are coming into PDX now have that. I believe we have asked that be the preferred approach. But the FAA has, if I recall correctly, it's been a year or so. The FAA has preferred not to put any guidelines on that, due to traffic concerns. But there is an approach that is available. It's just a matter of pilots requesting that and that becoming more the norm.
Oh, man, Mike, what I was talking about, there are RMPs, the RMPY, I think it is, for airplanes that come down from the north when the PDX is in West Flow. And there's an RMPY for traffic from the east.
Correct.
But there isn't one for traffic coming up from the south. And it's that one that we will look to see if we can, that component of an RMP.
Oh, okay, yeah, there is no river approach from the south.
Would it be appropriate for us to, in a very nice way, contact the airlines and say it would be appreciated if they encourage their pilots to request that approach?
There isn't one, that's the point.
No.
So as Mike and I were saying there, if you're an aircraft crew that's coming down from the north, you have that option. If you're coming from the east, you do. But if you're coming up from the south, you don't.
I see.
Yeah, so that's that to add a component to the RMPY is what I think it's called, Mike, is a southern approach portion of the RMPY is what we need to try to add.
Yeah, there would need to be a new approach that takes them from the south up over where the mill used to be and then down the river, and that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, it would be really nice to have an instrument approach that was comparable to the old mill. That was a great approach.
What we'd like to ask also, Brian Sweeney, do you have anything that you'd like to address the committee with today?
Is he muted?
Brian, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was having button problems here. I'm used to using a different format. Zoom is not on our computers anymore. Nope, I just wanted to come. It's been a couple months, I think, and sorry I couldn't make it down there. I'm in Aurora. It takes me a half hour to get home and then log on after I eat real quick. So just kind of wanted to get caught up with what's going on. It sounds like maybe some of the same conversations we were having last time. And so it's just good to listen to folks talk about what their concerns are. We haven't been flying that much. The weather's kept us out of the air quite a bit. But looking outside, it looks like the weather's starting to change. And so the forecast looks good. And we'll have 2 operational planes here in the next week or 2. So we'll be back to fully staffed as far as equipment goes. We've been operating with just 1 plane the last year. We'll have 2 this year. And so same camera system on the new plane should keep us up pretty high, higher as long as the clouds aren't pushing us down towards the ground, and doing more focused missions with specialty units inside the precincts rather than patrol support. But we're still supporting patrol and flying pattern alpha when we're not on a call. So happy to answer any questions. I said I didn't have anything to say, and so I just talked for 2 minutes. Hopefully that filled up a little bit of time or answered some questions, but happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Go ahead, Joe.
Have you become completely reconciled to being in Aurora? Or
No.
would you still like to be closer?
Yeah, I'm working on that pretty hard with my current command, and we have a request in to come back to Portland.
Do you see us being able to offer any help in that regard?
I think I'm okay. I think it might be a budget issue. It could be a number of factors that I'm not aware of, but there's not even really an argument. It just makes sense for us to be back at PDX for the operation that we're conducting with our 2 planes and our personnel. And so I don't think anybody disagrees with that on my end. I think it's just a matter of making it happen on the police bureaus and city side. So a lot of support from the port recently, and them helping us out with finding a place to go, and Atlantic Aviation there. And so I think we know where we'd like to go if we're given permission to come back. So yeah, I appreciate you asking. That's nice to have the offer and know that folks want us back in Portland. So I appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions for Brian?
No.
Brian, you're more than welcome to stay if you want, but you can have your evening to your own devices if you feel so.
I think there's a noise update part I'm gonna hang out for, and then I'll probably jump off after that.
Okay. And Ms. Barbie Stevenson, I see you dialed in. Can you introduce yourself for us? Ms. Stevenson?
Is she muted?
I asked her to unmute herself.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Okay, with that, Chris, you're up.
Okay, this would be the structural mitigation presentation. That one. Slide show. Slides from the beginning. Yeah, right there.
There we go. Sorry, just took a little while.
All right, so we're still learning. Audience, can you see the screen? All right. So just today, I just wanted we're within our noise group, and especially within the environmental group as a whole for the Port of Portland, we've been doing our standard business. We understand as a group, as we've just been talking, how difficult it is to move airplanes away from people. And we end up with people in it with, let's say, just different levels of exposure to aircraft noise based on where you live. And over time, the Port of Portland has been involved with, and something we call the X overlay, which is land use planning. And sort of an evaluation of the quality of life for people within their home based on their, the relative distance away from PDX. Most of them within what we call the X overlay or the zoning code for aircraft noise around Portland is close in. And then there's also mitigation standards that are within the regulations that are Part 150 and the ideas of what the federal government. Go ahead. What the federal government decides is compatible versus non-compatible land. So I want to talk about that a little bit today. And at the conclusion of this presentation, I want to open this up to a discussion, and I'll sort of ping you guys with some thoughts, plant some questions in your mind, and then we'll sort of talk about this over time. But so this is just a little bit of a refresher for a lot of you. A noise program developed, noise compatibility program under Part 150, right? Airport noise compatibility planning. Under Part 150 establish a consistent noise reduction planning process. Requirements included development of noise exposure maps. We've seen those before, and you'll see them again this evening. Those are what we call noise contour maps typically. And then for those airports that across the country that develop those maps and understand that they have non-compatible land use, then they then go forward in cooperation with the FAA and others to develop noise compatibility plans and NCPs. And Part 150 throughout the process always involves public input. So the difficulty with Part 150, and maybe a shortcoming, depending on how you look at it, is if non-compatible land use by FAA guidelines identified through NEM development analysis, if there is none, there's little FAA support for an NCP. So for instance, a lot of the work that we do for the Hillsborough Airport's always been without heavy support from the FAA because there's never been non-compatible use there. So everything in there has to be done voluntarily. Next slide. So this is one of the last of the noise exposure maps or NEMs that we did for the Port of Portland for Port of PDX under Part 150. I know for those of us in the audience, the table there is really small, but the thing that's important to note about this is this was done in 2010. And it was a forecast of aircraft noise exposure conditions for the year 2017. And it was based on, I think it was something like 790 operations per day at PDX. And what you see there is the noise contour lines, and the one that's important because it's what establishes compatible versus non-compatible by federal guidelines is 65 day-night level is the name of the metric. Anything at 65 DNL and lower is compatible by federal guidelines for almost all land uses. Anything above 65, then it starts to get to where you have to identify the land use specifically, because 65 and higher it's not compatible for residential, schools, churches, and some other land uses, but it is compatible for most all commercial uses. But anyway, what's important, I think, from this slide is to know that, again, by federal guidelines, and which you would have more support from the FAA, we have no non-compatible land use around this facility. Next slide. So if you look at this table here, it's just a summary of what I just said. If you start to the columns all the way to the right, that says over 85 decibels DNL, and you notice basically nothing is compatible at that level. That's incredibly loud. But as you work your way to the left, you start to get down to 75, the 70 to 75, and you can see that residential is not compatible at that level. At 75, years and years ago, the FAA actually purchased homes for a lot of people that were in that level of noise, and essentially they allowed them to relocate, and then those areas were never used for residential again. It's potentially coming back to the possibility of using it for residential because aircraft have become so much quieter over time. But anyway, again, this is just reinforcing that at 65 or less, it's all compatible land use by the FAA's guidelines or the federal government's guidelines. So we don't get much support for NCPs for any of the Port of Portland's facilities. The reality is we still have them today. Because at one point in time in the past, again, the noise at 65 DNL was large enough, or contours were large enough that it did encompass some homes, especially to the west of the airport. Next slide. To give you a little bit of a perspective about the kind of things I was just mentioning, this is the same kind of noise exposure map for the San Diego airport. San Diego airport is a single runway. They have they have a very similar number of operations to what PDX runs annually. This is just one area of what they have as their sound insulation program to try to mitigate the noise exposure there. And since the year 2001, they have literally sound insulated 4,500 dwellings there. We had 6 in the 65 DNL in the contour maps that I showed you in the previous slide. There they have 4,500. So in the sort of the grand scheme of things, we have it well here compared to other places. If you looked at a map like this around Chicago, O'Hare, some other places like that, you see astronomical numbers of homes where people are exposed to much higher levels. Next slide. And so we don't do Part 150 noise mitigation being sound insulation programs. We do have our noise compatibility program with our noise abatement, arrival and departure procedures and so forth. But in reality, because the people that were working for the Port of Portland at the time, and also the city of Portland, were planning well for the future, they started doing this literally slightly even before that kind of work was done for airports under Part 150. This is the Portland Noise Impact Zone. This is a zoning code within the city of Portland, and it's been in place since at least 1983. And what happens with this zoning code is if we start looking at these noise contours, if you look at the red one, it's been chopped down. It started out as an aircraft noise exposure contour that would have looked like similar to the slide that I showed you before that had the NEM on it. But we cut away the portions of it that aren't within the city limits of Portland because it doesn't apply outside the city. This is Portland zoning code. So that's why you don't see it reaching out into the cross-government island and so forth. But when you look at that red contour, that's 68 DNL from 1990. And within that contour, most residential development is prohibited. You can propose residential development in there if you have some, this word I always blank on it, but if you get some exemptions based on the way it was zoned at the time, it has to be farm and forest or rural something or other, then you can get an exemption. But if you don't, then you can't develop a home or condos or apartments within the red contour there. But the yellow one at 65 DNL, you can do so, but you have to dedicate a navigation easement and a noise disclosure statement to the Port of Portland. In return, the port would send you to an acoustical engineer who would certify that your building plans would ensure that the interior of your home met a 45 or decibel less sound level. And the Port of Portland paid for that acoustical certification. So we've essentially done what noise mitigation programs under Part 150 would do, but the port has just done it independently. There's a couple of exceptions though. So under Part 150, those homes in San Diego, for instance, they get full installation. And that goes all the way into walls, ceilings, windows, and things like that. And another thing those programs typically do is they also include central air conditioning for homes that didn't have it. We don't do that for the Port of Portland's XO, the city's zoning code. So I'll talk about that again in a while. So I'm gonna go next slide. There's gonna be links in here. Just click on one and then hit OK. And then it'll ask you. I just want to give you an idea of some of the paperwork that we have when we do this. So try to go back to the presentation. That's okay. We'll skip it. I was going to show you here is just what the forms felt. So I mentioned a noise disclosure statement, and I mentioned an easement. And I was just going to show you what those look like. They're just it'll say something like your house has been, the proposed development has been identified to be in this specific noise contour. And the noise disclosure statements would say something like we're here to tell you that you expect to be exposed to a certain level of noise being at this location. And then a navigation easement simply is, if I use simple terms, just means you now, by signing this document, essentially provide the rights to the Port of Portland to overfly your home, regardless of what noise level it exposes you to. So kind of, it kind of tries to inform people that the remedies by law, they're just kind of giving up on some of that. So we know this, right? That we've talked about this a lot in other meetings, that at 65 or whatever DNL level is not a very good predictor of annoyance. It's a noise metric that was formulated by the FAA back in the 70s, I think it was, and they realized even at the time that there were some shortcomings to it. And over time, the idea was to refine that kind of thing and build mitigation programs around other metrics, other things. So this is just, we've presented this to you all before, that this is about, the locations that we've received complaints from for about the last 10 years.
The red dots are complaints.
Complaint locations, yeah, but not a count, Joe, just the households. So it's obvious, right, that you see so much of the complaint activity and the disturbance for people that are well outside even a contour from 1990, which is much larger than they are today. That's the same X-ray contour set.
And I'd argue a lot of that over northeast Portland and part of the North Portland's the crosswind runway usage.
And what's the date of this,
The complaints, Joe?
of the slide?
Well, so the noise contours, the shaded area, those are that same 1990 X overlay noise contour set. And the complaints are 10 years between 2013 and 2023. Okay. So I just wanted to focus in on something here because, so I mentioned when we work with, or when in the past, when the city has issued building permits for if within the X overlay, there was a building standard, interior level, noise level standard for those homes. But if those homes were built outside of those noise contours early enough on that, building codes were what they were at the time, and there was no guarantee of certifying an interior sound level. You can find, I wanted to highlight this, and this is Ms. Vetrano, who provided public testimony earlier this evening, who lives in this area. So I highlighted the Wilkes neighborhood, for instance. It is just outside of that X overlay. And it's under the final approach path, especially for runway 28 left here at PDX. And 28 left, or this kind of west flow activity typically happens most often in the warmer months of the year. So in this neighborhood, to give you this example here, this is just a very common aircraft. It's an Alaska Airlines 737-900. And when it gets to that Wilkes, and by the way, there's that little red dot inside I blocked this out in yellow to block out the Wilkes neighborhood. And then literally right underneath that red line, that's the approach path for the airplane, there's a little red dot. And that is a noise monitor location for a noise monitor that we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the Wilkes Park of that neighborhood. So what you're seeing here is this particular airplane on an August evening, just almost 1 o'clock in the morning, flew over the Wilkes neighborhood, and at that location, that noise monitor location, the aircraft's altitude was just under 1,300 feet. And the peak sound level of the noise event it caused was 75 decibels. And so for the people in the Wilkes neighborhood, that's the reality. 24 hours a day during the summertime, and we have a smaller number of operations overnight than we do through the peak of the day, but it still goes on all night. So to get to what I'm talking about here, just a second, next slide.
What year was that? The peak, what you're talking about this?
That was just a single noise event, Marcus. So
Okay.
it happened in August 1st or 2nd of this year.
Of this last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was it. By the way, that was a stage 4 airplane, right? In the past, it'd be much louder, but
Yeah. That's what I was getting at.
so why I wanted to brief you all with that and start a discussion here is couple things. So I want to focus back on east versus west. And so let's talk about west, right? So we had this X overlay where homes were built. A lot of them started coming up in the 80s and late 80s and early 90s. And throughout the X overlay process, you get a home that's got certification by an acoustical engineer to meet an interior sound level when the windows are closed. You get none of that with open windows, right? And again, the code didn't require air conditioning. So what happens, especially as time goes on, the evenings get warmer and warmer and warmer and more often, right? You get situations where people now are gonna get exposed to that noise because they don't have any other choice if they can't cool themselves down, right? Or if you're in the Wilkes neighborhood or others like it, where the code never applied. So you may have situations in those areas where they have the same nighttime outcome. They get overflown often at times when they have no choice but to be at home with the windows open. Or you can be in there in the evening when you just want the breeze, but then you have to cope with airplane noise. So what I want to have this discussion about is we've kind of looked around, and of course, like we understand that we can't move airplanes all that well, but can we do other things to help mitigate the situation for people that have the worst of the exposure from it? Right? Can we go back and revisit certain things that have been taking place under the X overlay? Like it was built in the 80s, right? Do we have a belief or something that would think that home is still in the same condition it was when it was new, right? Is it still, all the seals in the windows still good? Are there other things that might introduce noise intrusion, where it was well insulated before, but it may not be now? Could we introduce some way to help people get air conditioning if they don't have it? That kind of thing. So that's the discussion. I want you all to let us know if you know of grant programs, for instance, that might help individuals in those situations. Could the port team up with organizations that offer grants like that? Could you point us in the direction of those kind of things that we're not aware of? It's one of the things I've been asked about from my managers, like especially Jan Bees, you all have met at least over Zoom for one of our meetings. Is can we in ideas of shared prosperity, can we help in some way for people that maybe in those situations where they might not be able to afford it or something like that? So anyway, it's just a discussion. I just want to kick this off. Like I'd like for the Port of Portland to explore this, and we're looking for feedback from you all. How could we help? Programs that we could partner with. Could we like match grant funds of programs you already know, stuff like that? Do you have any questions or comments about where I'm going with this?
Well, if we had an unlimited budget, we could just say we'll give everybody insulation, and we'll give everybody good windows, and we'll give everybody air conditioning. And since that is never going to happen, it seems to me that we should start with what can be done for nothing. And one of the things that can be done for nothing, and this is a pony that I've ridden before, the average time Americans in an urban area like Portland live in a single residence, and before moving is what, 20 years or so? I don't know what the figure is, but I'm guessing it's around 20 years. We're talking about trying to mitigate something that began 30 and 40 years ago. So at the very least, we ought to do whatever we can to make sure that whenever anybody is moving into that neighborhood, they know what they are getting into, so they don't feel badly treated when they discover that it gets noisy in May. See what I'm saying? And that comes back to, we just really need to get legislation that requires the notification, which costs nothing. And the argument against it, of course, is, well, that's gonna lower the value of my house when I sell it. And the answer to that is, if that's true, that's all the more reason to have it. Because if it really is going to, that's because people deserve to know. That's an argument for, not against the notification. That's the place to start. And then beyond that, I guess we need to start talking to our representatives in both Salem and much more important in Washington DC about, can we get some money to help some of these?
I forgot to mention, go ahead.
So I just looked up this one here on the internet. It's called energy.gov. And a friend of mine used this one along with the one that is, you actually have a monthly bill that we're paying for it through our utilities, the electric company, for example, where you can have them come to your house. It's free, right? Because we're all paying for it. And you can have them test your house and look for leaks and all kinds of stuff, and they'll make recommendations on what you can do to your house to save energy. Whether you need windows, outlet covers, all kinds of things, and he's done it. And I was so impressed by it, because like his gas bill is $20 a month, even in the wintertime, because he's just followed the plan. And it wasn't expensive. He doesn't make a lot of money. And I was just totally blown away by this, right? His electric bill is very inexpensive, and I went, your gas bill is like $20 a month? He said, yeah. Went over there, my wife and I were visiting, and it's super cheap to heat his home. And it hardly ever comes on, his heat. And he lives in a house that was built 100 years ago.
What was that website again?
I'd have to get which one he called, and he found it online, but you can start off with energy.gov. And this is a home energy assessments, and it's energy saver. And this is just one of them, but I know Oregon has it. If you'll go through the electric company, you give them your address and they will come to your home. It's free. They'll assess your property. They'll figure out what you need to do. This is the kind of thing you're looking for, right? Now, they will give you free thermostats, all kinds of things like this that will help you get started on this. They're not going to pay for everything that you've got, but they will lead you in the right direction. You'll get all kinds of discounts and what have you. But it's amazing all the things you can have done.
I believe Portland General Electric has programs as well that I've
That's what I'm
seen.
talking about.
Yeah.
Portland General Electric.
Before it escapes my memory, Joe, I wanted to mention something to you. There was that X overlay map that had noise contours on it. It had a blue map also, or blue contour, and I forgot to address that. That one was added to the city code when they did airport futures back in 2010, the master plan update. And that one was added back in 2010 is they used a forecast noise contour for 2035. There was multiples generated back then. I don't remember which. I think it's called the 50th percentile. And what they added back then was if it was going to be new construction in the blue contour, then whoever was applying for the construction permit had to dedicate a noise disclosure statement. So make them aware.
That was just for new construction.
Right, yeah. And there has been, the port went through a process of doing disclosure work like that around the Hillsborough Airport. It was challenging.
Yeah, and you look in the Cully neighborhood or in the neighborhood directly south of the cross runway. There are very, very few houses have been built there in the last 50 years.
Correct. Laura, we're gonna. Sue, Latrina, did you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment that while these energy assessments could be useful, energy assessment does not translate 100% to noise assessment.
No, you're right, not 100%, but if you do get thermal efficiency improvements, you get not 100%, but you do also get a noise efficiency improvement as well. But you're right, not 100%. Laura?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think that you could definitely work with another organization to develop noise abatement as part of that energy efficiency evaluation. Because certain kinds of insulating activities can improve noise or noise abatement, right? So I think you're onto something there. And also you were asking a little bit earlier about partnering what kind of organizations you could partner with. And one of the big things around here is tree canopy, and trees are known to help with noise abatement, trees and shrubs and so forth. And so there are a lot of local organizations that plant trees for free for low income folks, and and just generally anyone who applies for them really can get them. And so those would be good, like Friends of Trees, and there's some others. And I think the port's actually given away trees in the past as well. But that's just a multiple benefits kind of an activity. Over time, the trees grow and they provide noise dampening effects naturally that also are helpful, for the environment.
I have a question of fact. Does anybody know, or is it possible that there is a difference if you take this kind of insulation of heat insulation and heat insulation, two different kinds, each of which produces approximately the same amount of success? Is there any difference in how much noise they would attenuate between them?
Yes,
Yes. If I might,
go ahead.
so when you're, just give you a little background, when I worked at the San Jose International Airport, I worked in the noise group, but we were also teamed up with the sound insulation program there. Because the noise group was responsible for developing the noise contours that established eligibility for sound insulation for homes. So we worked together, and I got to witness a lot of this through the process of seeing homes get insulated. The difference when you go through a residential sound insulation program like that, they do adopt very specialized materials that are designed specifically for sound reduction. Right, what they do is they go up and above and beyond what you would get from just thermal insulation. It kind of does both.
Yep.
But so yes, a standard thermal insulation wouldn't provide as much noise absorption as a specialized one.
Then at the very least, anything we could do to educate people who might be contemplating thermal insulation, that you might have to pay a few bucks more to use this other material would be very useful.
And a lot of people, well, remind me to get back to you, Mark.
Okay.
A lot of people, if you're in a situation where your home is old enough where it might have single pane glass. You really? A lot of people without investigating this might assume that just any old double pane glass, or a lot of people with double's better, triple must be all the much more better, right? So some people install triple pane glass windows, when in reality, the windows that are chosen specifically for noise reduction are double pane. The difference is they're specialized. They have one thick pane of glass and one thin one, and the two of them are separated by a really large gap.
And the gap is what does the job.
It's all that combined. But if you don't know any better, so the amount of sound that would go through a pane of glass. So what you get from the outside to the inside, the window is rated as what they call a sound transmission class, or STC. And so you have to, if you're looking to do the best you can when it comes to mitigating the sound level within your home, you have to choose the windows with the highest STC ratings. And to get the ultimate of that, then you have to choose the windows like I just described. But the difficulty about them is they're not as pretty, let's just say, as other options that you might have. They're designed, it's function over form. Yeah, anybody else?
I was just gonna say that we have to be careful. We can't name brands. You can't say different type of, you just have to be careful with that, being a government agency. But you can name what the material is made out of.
And what to
Well,
look for specifically.
You can't recommend brands, but I don't see any reason you couldn't have a list of brands with a check mark next to them.
You can say wool. You can say it's made out of wool. Or
Again, we would ultimately be looking to point people in the right direction and
Yes.
make partnerships with the people, Joe, who know how to speak the language and
Yeah.
what pitfalls.
third party. I can pass it on to you.
Okay, any other comments for Chris? Excellent. Not off the hook.
Yeah, you get me again.
I would just suggest, and this might be something for us to talk about next month.
Exactly.
in the planning meeting, yes. This is gonna be important, that as time goes on, we're gonna keep trying to plug away at this, and then it's not gonna go away after a week. All right, I'm up again. Fly quiet one this time. And so if we do fly quiet, just heads up, we're gonna try to do this more frequently, and we're gonna try to step up our outreach if we can with our traffic control. And we might also look to see if what we sort of look at under fly quiet still makes sense, or if we should revise things and change things up, but I'll give you what we've been doing for the sort of the fly quiet annual one, this one for 2023, obviously. Next slide, please. So as I want to go through just the basics again, it'll show you exactly what kind of things that we're looking at, how we identify what we're about to present to you. So in this graphic, this is something we call penetration gates. You see these picket fence looking things on the map here.
Can you share the screen?
Oh, it's not sharing? Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you, Laura. You see now?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So these picket fence looking, we call these penetration gates. And within our ANOM system, we can set these up basically anywhere, any number of them we want, any dimension we want, and so forth. And then within ANOMS, we set this up and say, make this active. So what ANOMS does is it takes all the tracks so this one, it takes all the flight tracks and it gets in the database, and then it processes and identifies whether the tracks go through these gates or not. Next slide. We also do processing like this, where we try to identify usage of specific navigational procedures, understanding that if this navigational procedure is used, then the aircraft will fly through all of these gates. And then another form of analysis we do is we have a subscription to flight plan data from one subscriber or provider of that. And what we get out of them is we get something like this table that you see up here, this Excel spreadsheet, a few rows of it. And if you notice column F where it says route, you'll see that there's a bold one in there called WAMI 4 in the first example. And the second one is Timbers 2. So WAMI is a RNAV departure procedure, and the Timbers is an arrival procedure. So we get this information, and then there's just a simple program in Excel that says, I identified the known RNAV procedures, so therefore the aircraft crew that filed this flight plan used an RNAV procedure. So then you see the column there, it says RNAV, yes or no. You notice anywhere outside of the highlighted stuff, you won't see anything bolded in there, and so in those cases, the crew didn't use an RNAV procedure. And the graphic on the bottom of the slide there, that's just, Mike will be very familiar with this. That's just what the published procedure looks like for pilots when they go research what the procedure is about. And pilots like Mike will program this kind of thing into the flight management system of the airplane. And they will fly for them, pretty much.
Yeah, generally this is already preloaded. So when you get into the airplane and you say you're on the Alaska side, more often than not, you will be given launching to the west, to a left, WAMI departure transition to Kawada, for example. Boom, done.
All right, next slide. All right, so we always present this with new. Okay, questions?
No, I just said he gets paid for it.
For PDX, we typically have west flow operations in the warmer months of the year, with air masses, airflows coming from the coast going east. And then in the wintertime, changes around, the cold air comes through the gorge, and airplane let's operate into the headwinds to the east. So it helps, just so happens that along with the preferential runway use for the air traffic controllers, we get nearly a 50-50 flow historically. And this is the breakdown of what it looked like for 2023. It's 56% west and 44% east. So just 6% off of 50-50 split. With slight preference for west flow. And that could also be because the air traffic control system prefers aircraft to go west also. Next. All right, something. So this is a jet departure early turn. So looking at the notes in the bottom of the table there, we have a letter of agreement and implemented flight procedures. And the section 3 of that LOA says if your large commercial jet departing runway 10 right or left at PDX, you shall fly on that heading until you reach 7,000 feet or 11 miles from the crosswind runway 321, whichever comes first. And if you're departing to the west, runways 28 left or right, you fly runway or out the river corridor until reaching 6,000 feet altitude or 8 miles. And these are also Part 150 recommendations that have carried on for a long period of time. But anyway, the last Part 150 recommendation was record of approval came from the FAA in 2006. But anyway, we have some work to do with East Flow. We only had 65% of aircraft flying the procedure without churning early. And on West Flow is 84%. So I've had a look at this from time to time to see what is driving the percentages down on the East Flow. Notice though, it's the ask is to ask air crews to fly higher and further when they're going that direction. If you're Hawaiian Airlines or if you're somebody that has a destination to the north, you're flying what you think of as the wrong way, the wrong direction for a long period of time. And so I think that's one of the motivators that has operators using this with less compliance or a higher or a lower rate. Anyway, it's something that we sort of identify as something we need to address through our outreach.
Mike, typically, how high are you when you hit 7,000?
7,000.
I mean, how far away, excuse me, how far do you travel when you hit 7,000?
I'm not sure. I know from here, we're roughly 6,000-7,000 about the time we hit Kelly Point, which is about in line with that, with the fence.
Next slide. Different story of the turboprops. Here's why. Same letter of agreement. If you're turboprop crew operating from runways 10 left, 10 right, you can go down the river corridor until you reach a minimum of 8,000 feet. Or 3,000 feet, sorry. And it's the same altitude, east flow. West flow, 3,000 both ways. And climb performance on airplanes these days, that 3,000 feet comes quickly. So they simply reach the altitudes we ask them to before turning quite easily. So it's easy for them to apply this. But anyway, there's the only thing that's sort of a caveat about this is the turboprops get divergent headings, they call it, at times when there's a lot of traffic waiting for runway pavement at PDX. So if you're a turboprop that lines up on the taxiway waiting to get on the runway and you have jet aircraft behind you, where if the air traffic control system asks you to fly out the river corridors for too long, you might create delay. They'll put them on what they call divergent headings, and you can see some examples of that. If you look at the track examples on the screen on the west flow, so to the west of PDX, you'll see that those tracks that kind of go off at a 35 or 40 degree, 5-degree angle from the end of the runway. That's west flow divergent heading, and then you see the stuff that goes kind of straight out east flow from the south runway. And the north runway also, that's divergent heading thing. So at times with heavy traffic demand at PDX, they'll do divergent headings for turboprops. And we don't analyze those in the same way. But if you look at just the percentage of uses of the aircraft that did what's described in the letter of agreement, flying 3,000 feet out the river corridors, we've got solid 99% each direction. Next slide.
This is Pete. Can I ask a question? I'm having trouble raising my hand. Can you hear
Go
me?
for it, Pete. Yeah.
Can you confirm, for the east flow, is there a specific heading mentioned in the letter? Or not?
There is, I don't, Jerry, do you know, remember what it
All
is?
Well,
Reason-
before the RNAV stuff, it was 085.
Right. And what's happening is, because I'm monitoring this stuff, as you know, all the time. And many is the time where they'll do the 085 heading. But lately I've been noticing that they're giving them 090. Sometimes it's even as far as 110, which is obviously a little bit further out into sensitive areas. And I don't know if people are aware of that or not, but I've noticed that that's been happening a lot, and it's just on normal days. 090 seems to be the most popular one, but I have heard 100-degree headings as well. Just an observation.
Okay, thanks for that, B. We have ways to listen to see what kind of clearances they were given, and we don't know if there might have been some traffic involved or something like that, but if you say it's consistent through more than a few minutes at a time, that's interesting. We'll look into that. Okay, this one's a little different. It's like, okay, well, you flew the departure procedure. Well, how well did you fly? Did you really stay within the river corridors the best that you could? The answer is yes. 99% of what we call a precise departure east flow, and 89% from this flow. Next. Turboprops, it's, pretty good when we go to east flow. There's a lot of room out there. And again, these kind of aircraft can easily reach 3,000 feet. Anyway, the challenge here is kind of with our early turns on the jet departures to the east, we have a lower rate of precision when it comes to turboprops flying to the west. We talked about this before. There's many reasons for this. One of them is turboprops are not eligible to fly RNAV procedures on departures. They can run them on arrivals, not departures.
And what's the date of this?
2023.
All of the whole year?
Yep. So we have the situation we've talked about before. We've seen the examples of overflight of Hayden Island. And that happens because
This of course will be drastically changed once construction is done and we get the Crosswind runway totally usable. When is that? The end of next year?
Oh, no.
2005, I think so. I think you could, or 2005 is right.
Anyway, so that there's a lot of room for error to the east. There's less room for error to the west, and we've just talked about this in meetings in the past. We don't have an RNAV departure procedure available for any aircraft that have destinations to the north or to the west. But even if they had, as of now, turboprops are not eligible to use RNAV departure procedures at PDX. So it happens that they fly less precise procedures, and that makes them less likely to fly down the center of the river, especially in the left flow. Next. Interesting jet arrival early turns. In a perfect world, in reality, we talked about the RMPY procedures earlier in this discussion this evening. If we were able to do, as we described, an approach on RNAV from the south, we would actually ask them to be making turns. It wouldn't be an evaluation of how well they're staying within a corridor on conventional approaches like we're evaluating here. But anyway, not having airplanes come across central parts of Portland and turn in short finals to arrivals, we don't see that often. They're usually using RNAV or other forms of approaches that keep them outside of the core of the city. And you see examples like this, and you see our utilization rate at 94% both directions.
Am I right in thinking that those are remarkably impressive percentages?
I think so.
Compared to somewhere else?
Well, there's no equivalent though, Joe. So we look
There's no way to know.
No, how things operate in a PDX is different than it would be anywhere else, right? So, but
This is what happens when you get the pilot out of the equation and the computer's flying the airplane.
yeah, I'll talk about that in a moment. Next. So anyway, early turns for arrivals for turboprops, only 2% early turns in east flow, so 90% use of procedures as is more community friendly in east flow and 81% in west. I don't know why exactly that would be less in west flow in this case. You could look at that. Next. Okay, RNAV departures. I just mentioned, you can see there's again, an example of the charted procedure there in the upper left corner of the slide. And you notice the red box, turbojet aircraft only. So their turboprops simply aren't eligible to fly RNAVs here currently. And that's what drives down the percentages. So again, there are no RNAV departure procedures available for air crews with the destinations to the north, like Seattle, Anchorage, out across. If your cargo pilots like might go to Anchorage, then over into Asia. Or if you're Hawaiian Airlines, you're going west, there's no option really for them either. So because what we're doing is we're looking at all the aircraft departing, there's a whole bunch of aircraft that aren't eligible to do it at all. There's aircraft that fly routes where there is no RNAV. So what ends up happening with that is we get a small percentage of actual RNAV departure use currently. So we still get 91% conventionals and only 9% RNAV. Again, but also according to the way we analyze the data, which is through a subscription. So over time, hopefully we find other ways to analyze that. Next.
Have we proposed a west RNAV departure?
Yes. Yeah, and a north one. You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has that gone forward?
Yeah, they accepted it as they took our,
Proposal,
yeah, it's
somewhere in the maw.
2-year development time, if you prove it at all.
All right, I just want to fix with my name on.
I tried, I actually requested if they could name one of the Finch departure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
We'll see.
There is actually an intersection with my name on it, but it's in Japan. So. Yeah, I found it.
Right, so here, I was joking a little while ago that I would talk about the importance of RNAV. And here's why. So recall, departing, you should fly to 7,000 feet. Going east or 6,000 feet. Going west or to whatever. So the thing is, because RNAV is based on points of latitude, longitude. If the FMS is programmed to fly across those points, and the aircraft does the majority of the departure procedures, it's impossible basically to make early turns. We get 100% compliance with those measures if everything flew in RNAV, pretty much. There could be times when weather would get in the way or traffic and things like that, but in a perfect world, there wouldn't be such a thing. Bye. All right, RNAV arrivals. This is different, right? You, as an aircraft, even turboprops can fly RNAVs. It's not the same restrictions as our departure procedures. So it is, as time has gone on, you look at that, we're at 83% RNAV now and only 17% conventionals.
Mike, typically, both one answer for departures and one answer for arrivals. When do you turn off the autopilot?
Boy, oh boy, that just depends. Pilot preference. Yeah, sometimes on the
That's why I said you.
I typically, well, the airplane I'm flying now, I typically turn it off about 1,500 feet or 1,000 feet on final.
And a departure? When do you turn it on?
I personally like to fly it as long as possible, so at least through 10,000 feet.
Next. R&P approaches. Yeah, when we first started analyzing what percentage of aircraft were utilizing the RMPs, when they started publishing them, they started using them probably about back in 2013 or so. The early phases of it was only 3%. And I think last time I presented this to you all, it might have been 6%. Or anyway, for 2023, when we looked at this, we're seeing now that 8.8% of the traffic out there is using RMPs. And I calculate this data. I have when I run the percentages for you all, I present it to you on these simple graphics, but when we calculate it and I export the data out of ANOMS for this, I start with tens of thousands of rows of data. And then we graph it, then I copy paste the graph from Excel into the slide. But one thing it does give us is, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this with the other graphics. Notice that it's the top 25 carriers by operations. If you're a small carrier, you may be less likely to have aircraft and crews. Aircraft that have the equipment on board to fly aren't have RNPs, and you're also less likely to have crews that are trained to do it. So the RNAV numbers that was in the pie graph before, and this one, just remember, it's the top 25 carriers for operations. But one thing when I looked at that, one thing that stood out at me was, to my surprise, Southwest Airlines had a 33% use rate of RNPs on their approaches in 2023. And the next closest one was like 10%. I don't know why that is, but
Jeez, the next closest was.
I don't know, John, I don't remember. And this the biggest number is stuck in my head. Wow, I've never seen that. Next. All right, so moving forward, again, we need to we try, and hopefully things will change within the organization where Jerry and I are, and we can get help doing some things that we've been doing in the past that have did not allow us to do more outreach and things like that. We hope to do more outreach with the FAA and see what we can do to improve on things, some like the early turns and jet departures and so forth. So here's ideas on from where we see what we see from 2023, so where we could go moving forward. So improvements to the East Flow early turns for jets. And I showed you had that low rate of departure precision for turboprops of West Flow. So investigate if we should maybe come up with a different metric for that. So to say we only got 51% is a little unfair because they can't fly RNAV, so they don't have a precise departure precision. They don't have a precision departure procedure to follow. All right, encourage use of RNAV because that improves overflight of the river corridor and reduces community noise exposure when aircraft are at lowest altitudes. And to do all this, hopefully expand, update air traffic control and TRACON briefings when possible. Jerry used to do, he would periodically get together with groups of new air traffic controllers and just give them a briefing on all of the noise abatement procedures that are important to us and the community. But that was at a time when the air traffic control system would get a sizable group of new controllers here. But if we can, it can't hurt to just meet with them periodically, all of them, as a reminder. There's a letter of agreement between the two organizations, by the way, and we agreed to it, we should follow it. Revise RNAV departure procedure evaluation by removing turboprops if possible. Because like I said, we will show you a very low use of RNAV procedures because not everything's eligible to use it. So what we try to do is try to focus on, well, if you are eligible equipped, then how many of you did it, right? Kind of thing. So the percentage will be a different story. And then last, that flight plan data that I showed you that had WAMI and River or whatever the bold stuff in it, that is as filed. So when you're an aircrew like Mike, you could file a flight plan from where you departed, and it could get changed en route. So what ends up happening is when you get to the terminal area for your arrival, you have flown potentially different procedure than what you filed. And so we want to see if we can understand when it's an arrival, if they actually flew what they filed or if somebody else was flown when they finally got to PDX.
Which happens more frequently than you wish.
I think that's it next.
You have to pull out, turn on the light and pull out your pencil.
Anybody have questions or comments about Fly Quiet for 2023?
Anybody online got their hand up?
Nope.
I know that one picture that showed the arrivals of the RNAVs, showed where most of them are, and most of them are in fact over that Ash Creek neighborhood. And very, very few of them get vectored off course.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know, I think it's the western portion of sort of the Ash Creek neighborhood, but again, that's not the only neighborhood. And the way when those procedures were devised and published, and then put in use by the FAA. They have to go through an environmental analysis to publish, to use those procedures. They got, those procedures were what they call a categorical exclusion from further environmental analysis because they aren't new. They're that RNAV procedure, flies through a corridor of air traffic that has always been in use, or at least for a very long time. So it's not good. But this concentrates.
Yeah, some of the pictures I saw from the late email from the Burgazovs showed some one-off arrivals and departures, and I think those might be what she's talking about. They are in fact just one-off. They're not the standard arrival. And I don't think those would be incorporated as the standard.
Would I, Mike, would I be guessing right that you are more likely to get a one-off at times of light traffic? Because they have more flexibility?
Yes, and it depends, it really depends. If there's heavy traffic and they need more time in between aircraft to sequence more aircraft in, they'll pull you off the arrival and give you vectors. If traffic is light and they might be able to give you a shortcut, they might do that as well.
Okay, any other questions for Chris? Thank you, that's a lot of work, I appreciate your efforts.
Yeah,
that was good stuff. Jerry, your turn to barrel,
that was really good.
take Saturday off.
What was?
Your presentation was really good.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We have the complaint report on there.
That's also PowerPoint.
Oh, that one, okay. Let me just, sorry, bear with me. We're gonna switch to PowerPoint.
Yeah, so minimize that now.
We not just need to put this, it keeps not letting me. There's another thing right here, which is end slide. Sure.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go into the.
All right, I had to kind of redesign that first slide just a little bit because I couldn't fit all those months in one line, so. We're meeting quarterly now, so I'm reporting instead of 2 months, I'm reporting on 3 months. I'm hoping just personally that we'll be able to kind of rearrange how we're doing that so that I can actually report on the quarters rather than having the months kind of spread out. But anyway, that's something that we'll have to work out. And so we're looking at November and December of last year and January of this year.
So if I understand quickly, you're talking about if it could be from October to December and January to, I see.
Yeah.
Which would mean adjusting our meeting schedule.
Yeah.
That
Right.
should be on the.
Yeah, we'd have to do it.
That should be on the March agenda too.
Yeah. Next slide.
Yeah, moving on.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So during this period, we got 3,088 complaints, and that's total, that's from all 3 airports. For just Portland, I think there's 19 fewer, is that right? So 3,069 for PDX. And 36 people submitted those.
So there are 8 people making 19 complaints.
Say that again?
There are 8 people making 19 complaints.
I think so, yeah. And What,
maybe not.
Well, that's what the math says.
right, right,
Give or take.
44 total and 36 for Portland. Anyway, next slide. So here we're seeing the, kind of the breakdown, from the top three, callers. And we have,
96%.
and actually the first two, this is a percentage of individuals.
I know
who made these
97%
calls.
from two people.
And so, yeah, the top two, are 90% of the call, 97% of the calls. Yeah, and then the third caller, of course, is from banks. So only 42 out of 3,000 were.
Now, y'all, so we see this kind of trend often. We have a much lower complaint volume for the majority of the community during the winter months, colder months.
Everybody's inside.
And then,
And
yeah,
that's because of closed windows mostly.
yeah, and also, remember, we're talking about, we're talking about months of November, December, January, we're talking about the holidays too, so
Sure.
people are
And
busy with
people,
family, Christmas shopping, all those kind of things, and they're distracted more so, and
closed windows and not sitting outside.
yeah, exactly. So, and it starts to change for two different reasons. When it starts to warm up, the traffic flow swaps back, again, to west flow. Some people,
that works.
yeah, a lot of times people aren't, or will be experiencing that for the first time, and it's like, kind of, realization. And then, just like you mentioned, Joey, we have, like I described, right? You're just gonna get more sound in your home if you have to be in it with open windows. So you get,
And people barbecuing.
yeah, no offense to the air support unit, but it's the time of the year where they're active and,
Sure.
and it's, we start to see change in the complaint patterns when the seasons change. So anyway, this is the low season for complaints usually.
Next slide. What this slide is showing is, the number of complaints that we've gotten, in this period, or actually, over the years, or in 2003. And those are the bar graphs that are showing those numbers. The line graphs are showing what, the averages over the last 5 years. And so we're definitely, leaving that average behind. The last couple of years, we've seen those bars running off of the chart.
But we knew that was gonna happen because of the online submissions.
But that is so totally
I would
skewed
agree with
because
you.
of two people.
Is there a breakdown, Jerry, between online submissions and calls?
We can do that, we haven't done it for a while, but, yeah, most of our submissions are online.
The two biggies are all online.
Not necessarily.
Are they still calling?
No, actually, I think they're emails or web form.
Yeah.
Most all emails nowadays, but and voicemail messages from time to time, but not many.
They're not taking the time, they've just got a single button they probably programmed on their computer and they punch it,
Yeah,
it goes.
I don't know, Joe, but that is possible. We haven't had experience this, and maybe I shouldn't plant a seed here, but if you look into a situation that happens at San Francisco International Airport, people have programmed the Amazon button.
Yeah, I know, they have it on their phone.
Yeah, they said to hit a button.
I saw when San Francisco announced they were doing that, I thought you were gonna be sorry.
They get upwards of 30,000 complaints a month at San Francisco International Airport.
You can tell you to punch a button.
Yeah. We've had that button, here, I think only twice. And it didn't last, it wasn't. But I mean, this may be,
Because I think we just mentally have to just sort of automatically discard number one guy and number two person, because
Yeah.
they
it kind of
don't
skews-
matter.
Right.
Yeah, that high of a number of contacts for one or two people, it kind of throws everything off for judging everybody else's issues.
Yeah, I just think I mentally just close that one off. Look at the,
One of the things that I like to look at, and then I think that is more important to look at in this situation, is the number of callers. The number of people who have called and complained about
taking the time to dial.
airplane noise, yeah. Yeah, because then you can see even that the line graph part of that chart is pretty much right on and much lower in some cases. So, next slide again, thank you. And then because we went through to January of this year, I started this year's chart. So. And like
A lot less
you were saying,
individuals.
and it's kind of hard to really get a handle on what's coming in when the numbers are off the chart.
It just doesn't fit on the bar. You could just look at it on the table instead.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that when I was prepping this, and I was thinking if I change the range on that chart so that it would fit, you wouldn't be able to see the number of complaints. Because there's so few of them, they just disappear. Next slide. This chart shows the number of complaints by neighborhood. And the top two are the same top two that were showing the 97%. And that's Ash Creek and the Banks neighborhood. And then, yeah, and Blue Heron, I looked that up. I didn't know where it was.
I don't either, where is it?
That's right. It's kind of just below Lake Oswego.
Okay.
And that's a result of the Arnett approach. What is it, Timbers? I think it's Timbers 1 or 2.
Yeah, is there Blue Heron neighborhood just west of 33rd? Blue Heron Golf Course?
No, it's actually, it's kind of south and west of Lake Oswego. And, you know, that's all of those, all three of those complaints.
So between Lake Oswego and Aurora,
And what?
and Aurora,
Yeah,
we put it online, yeah.
But yeah, what I do generally to make that is all,
The reason I asked that, because that could be, I wondered, were any of those for Aurora operations?
No.
No, okay.
no. Yeah, I spoke with each of these folks and was able to locate the time period that they gave me and, but anyway, what I do is I ask for the number of complaints from each of these areas and then I line them up with, you know, just the number, the largest number of complaints down to the smallest number of complaints, and very few, usually, you know, if you look back at other complaint reports, there are 2 or 3 at the top that are fairly aggressive, and then the rest of the neighborhoods are 1 or 2 calls. So
The Ash Creek, is that from the same household or is that two
Yes.
different? households?
it's just
And is Banks still
Two
making,
callers from one house.
2 callers from 1 house.
is Banks still mostly Mickey?
Is what?
Is Banks still mostly Mickey Barnes?
Omit the
Yes.
names, Joe, please.
What?
So don't mention names.
I'm a private citizen, I can mention names, I'd be delighted to have her sue me, I could use the money.
Go ahead, next slide. And then this is a fairly new slide, just the last, few CMAC meetings. Have I used this? And what I'm gonna try to do is leave the operations column the same, because I think that catches most of it. And just so we get a better idea of what people are complaining about.
I like that one.
Yeah, thanks. I like that too. And for instance, the commercial jet arrivals on top, there were 8 complaints. And not all of them, but most of them had to do with RNAV. RNAV departures. Well,
What is the ratio between cargo feeder and commercial jet operations? There must be a huge disparity. The reason
Yeah.
I'm asking,
I'm sure there
if my
would
guess
be.
is correct, then the cargo feeders are doing a much poorer job.
They use the crossman runway early in the morning and in the evening.
Yeah, except they get penalized for their approach and departure.
well, and a lot of what I've seen is because the crosswind runway is basically short.
Right.
And
They're not
they
using
can't
it much.
depart from there. The departures are using the parallel runway, the south usually, south runway, and when they go off the runway, they're only climbing to 500 or 700 feet before they turn. And so what they're doing is they're flying over, like, I want to say Roseway, or most people, they aren't used to it, and so I'm getting quite a few calls from that area.
And
It goes from Cully to Roseway to Madison, south and north,
Oh, okay. I see.
right on 82nd.
Yeah,
And just so you all know, you see that bottom one, the large volume of complaints, and the operation type says general operations. We don't have the resources to research all of those. So we don't, we just tag them as, annoyance about general aviation operations.
I mean, it's a night flying going on for the military. I mean,
yeah, a couple
I'm
of weeks.
surprised it's only 7.
Yeah, I was hoping that there'd be a military rep.
The noise alerts did really good though, I think.
Yeah, yeah, they do, and then also the law enforcement, I know. Brian was talking about the flying less because of the weather, and that really shows it. But only when they do go up, usually folks notice it,
Have we lost our orang rep?
or,
The orang,
I don't think so.
Not technically, no, just,
practically, have we lost them?
I
Does
I-
it so appear?
I have on my to-do list to get in touch with SICK. And ask them, touch base again about participation here, plus, we have had reports from people about something that they might have done differently.
Just remind them that the food is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't know what else is, necessarily mentionable on there, the GA operations. And when I say GA, they're not associated with PDX.
Yeah, that's just somebody doing pylon turns at 3,000 feet.
The reason that they're up there is because they fit into the other category. And
Where corporate jets fit in there? Under
jets,
commercial jet traffic.
yeah. The GA jets.
Is that
there
where it's
GA
going?
jets on there?
No. Operations.
No, that was my bad.
You don't delineate.
Even so, business jet or operations out of PDX, or even those that operate out of Hillsborough, don't get much attention,
Mhm.
very little. And that is attention from the community.
And a lot of those are not touch and goes from Hillsborough, because that's a whole nother issue. But there's a an area of, it's just a training area. It's even marked on, I don't remember what those maps are called. but-
Sectionals.
Section, yeah, as a training area. And so there's many propeller GA kind of small plants that are building houses out there. And they're not all from Hillswood. And so that's why I went into an other category.
I like that chart.
Good, okay, well,
Yeah, the basis of that chart was a recommendation by David Breeden. Y'all remember him?
Go figure.
Hmm.
Even management sticks in there.
Former manager of the NOIS program.
okay, next slide. And you've all seen this before. This is just a map showing where the complaints are coming from. And one thing I want to point out is that group of complaints just south of the airport over in Northeast Portland has almost always, as far as I can remember, been where the tightest group is.
Where the what?
Is just south of the airport in Northeast, and that's just, a lot of it is just the cargo people.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I also was looking at the group over just west of the Willamette. And that's that RNet, arrival procedure. That one that you can see down at the tip of Lake Oswego, that's what is that neighborhood? Anyway, that's one. Yeah.
Earlier. And I'd argue that cluster at Arbor Lodge about where, just shy of the University of Portland out on the bluff, that's departures. Be my guess to Oxhall departures,
Yeah.
making that turn south.
Yeah, and there are a few scattered in there, and I think Arbor Lodge is one of them, that's military. They're talking about in military departures.
Good stuff.
Yeah, next slide. See what we got. Posted noise alerts for that time period, just, back in 2023. Those are those two night flying.
Either there, the news stations are paying attention to the noise alerts, or the guards doing a good job with the PR, because I heard it on every station.
Well, yeah, and they have a pretty extensive, website too that includes similar noise alerts. So. But I don't know that I give them all credit.
Keep honest.
Okay, any questions?
Anybody have my line questions for Jerry? That works really well.
We do not.
I see this works really well. What
Yeah.
changes?
Good. Yeah.
Okay, Chris. Noise office report.
Okay, well,
All right.
you notice that the agenda says noise managers update. There's one, that's me. Now. So it's, I don't have much for you, but I will talk about reorganization for our group again. By the way, what is the noise management group now is Jerry and I. We get lots of support from the others in the environmental staff though. Just, thanks for attending, Tim.
Yeah, thank you.
We, if y'all can just go back to Phil Stenstrom, when he was the manager of the program, we went through a series of reorganizations and he took on another role on the board. And when that happened, the noise program was reorganized under David Breen. And David at the time was doing noise, air quality, and renewable energy. And then, they were looking to, and he got a promotion actually, he took on, waste minimization and air and water quality, so they had a lot on his plate. So they looked to remove some of that responsibility with David, and that's when we all got introduced to Rose Arcers. She was hired to do noise, air quality, and renewable energy. And so that changed, and Jerry and I were then reporting to Rose. She was had the position as the noise manager. Rose has departed the port. When she was a port employee, she was still residing way the hell outside. Now it's Seattle area, even either west or north of, she was a long ways away from this facility, and that worked fine when we were allowed to be 100% remote, but as time has gone on, they've started, like a lot of organizations, they started chipping away at that and asking us to be in the office more frequently, and she just couldn't. And, who knows what other personal reasons she might have had, but she moved on. And when she left, Jerry and I were without a dedicated manager, so at this point in time, we report directly to Jen Bees, who is the director of all environmental for the port. So we kind of bounce around a bit. Yet we're gonna go through yet another change though, and soon, probably by March, because it doesn't make any sense to have us reporting to Jen. It's not really a chain of command kind of thing. And so what's gonna happen eventually is Jen has a direct report named Michelle Hollis. She does environmental planning, and she also manages the support staff that do contract administration and just basic administrative support. And she'll take on notes. So eventually, Michelle Hollis will be who I report to, and Jerry report to me. And then Michelle will have environmental planners. So she got a promotion, she needs to backfill her position. And once that happens, then Jerry and I will start reporting to Michelle. But as of sometime not so long ago, Jen asked me to do this work and work with you all and manage the MOS program. So that's a change for Jerry and I. It affects us directly, and maybe affect you all directly also. But the change from Jen to Michelle won't affect us all that much. Michelle is a fantastic person.
Jen, we might meet her in April.
Michelle? Yes, there is a chance. She May. I think she and I talked today, and she may be available in May. And so I know I mentioned to her that you all like guest speakers, so.
She's more than a guest speaker.
Yeah.
She's sort of the absentee boss.
So yeah, if y'all remember, you remember Sean Logren, right? He does aviation planning, right? Sean has been promoted multiple times since then, but the idea of a planner, so Michelle does the planning for environmental. She's the lead on stuff, so any kind of planning for wildlife, like a restoration projects, and no, that's never mind. But anyway, she does plans. We'll let her describe it all to you.
And this has all happened in the last couple of years?
Yeah. So Jerry and I have gone from David Green to Rose Arcers to Jen Bees, and then soon over to Michelle. In the last 2 years.
How fast is the progress towards people coming in more often?
You mean new hires?
No.
Just regular employees.
Working here rather than from home.
Oh, well, I think the whisper in the ear is be here 2 days a week, or it could be more often. So yeah, we're getting sort of solid appearances for people in the office 2 days a week, and it's usually Tuesday through Thursday, not so much on the week.
And how much are people liking to be here as opposed to preferring to be at home? Or is that all over the map?
I think it's all over the map. It's just like I come in 5 days a week, but I prefer that. That's just my preference. And then also some departments have switched over to 3 days a week. But that's also because their work is ramping up because they're the team that's with the PDX next team. So every department has a different need to come in more frequently than others.
Do you guys come in or do you work from home?
Both, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Jerry's usually Tuesday, Thursday, and right, and he and I don't. Our workspaces aren't in the same aisle, so
Yeah.
we get busy, and I don't oftentimes get around and socialize. So I don't always know, where Jerry's workstation is on any given day. But I'm usually like cubicle Tuesday and Thursday.
Is there pretty much anticipation that it's forever?
No, I wouldn't say that.
So there might come a time when they want everybody to come in.
Well, another thing, Joe, consider this, you know, MENA does it voluntarily, but in an organization like this, there are so many people that are, you know, necessarily have to be
Oh,
here.
I know, that's what I'm thinking, that you need to be able to step to the next and say, how about this?
And there's, yeah, just, you know, the nature of their work means they have to be here. That's not the case for somebody like Jerry.
And just the efficiency of it.
Yeah, most of the time, give me a computer and a telephone and I'm perfectly happy. Doesn't matter where, it doesn't make any difference where it is.
And I just wanted to mention to you, you know, I had that dwelling mitigation discussion. Because we want to try to focus on, you know, on improvements that we might be able to make for people in the community. That's one focus for us going forward. You all know this, you all been involved with it in the past. We used to do a lot of outreach where we'd actually get out into neighborhoods and meet with people in their neighborhood association, you know, where in the building where they typically have those kinds of meetings, or you'd see Jerry at farmers market meetings, you'd see me doing Celebrate Hillsborough and all these other kind of things that we used to do, where we were out in the community interacting with people directly. Well, that stopped for COVID.
Yeah, neighborhood meetings are just now, like maybe having face-to-face meetings, but they're still almost all on Zoom.
So
Do I assume safely that I can put March in pen now?
The 22nd,
Uh-huh.
I'm okay with that.
Is that,
Friday,
is that a planning meeting?
yes,
We have a question.
Laura,
It's more of an instigation. Have you considered community benefits agreement?
say it again.
Have you considered community benefits agreements?
it means, so we would write a charter of some kind that would define that we would do a certain amount of participation in certain areas a number of times each year or something like that.
No, I'm thinking about, we're talking about these noise mitigation and grants and whatever it is, the court wants to be, or the port wants to be more involved with the communities. Some airports have community benefits agreements for impacted neighborhoods. It
Do
might
you
be
know-
something worth looking at.
Do you know a specific example of that, Laura, that you could point us to?
Well, yeah, what I'm thinking of is years ago, we met the folks from Truckee. And they
Okay.
had a community benefits agreement and they had a very strong, robust noise program because of it.
All right, I'll do some research on that.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, so anyway, one of the things I'm getting at here is we're looking to focus attention and effort, things that we may have lost track of or maybe never done before. And what that means is Jerry and I are working to sort of reorganize what each other does. So as a very simple example, as we sort of constricted in the number of people that are in our group, and just being kind to Jerry, I took on the role of doing data complaint entry. So that I did the entries and handed it over to Jerry and he did the research and follow-up. But I'm a horrible typist for one thing, and for a lot of other reasons, it's not very efficient to have me doing data entry. So we're looking to support staff, we're training support staff to take on that part of our work. And I, sit there and babysit our noise monitoring system all the time. There's some of it that runs reliably, doesn't ever do these eyes on it, and there are other parts of it that need to be like pampered all the time. And so I was trying to take my attention away from that so I can focus on other things, and I might try to get Jerry more involved with that. So we're just kind of rearranging things a little bit.
You guys need a noise office intern.
Yeah, well, here's another thing. We're being asked to do all this without new staff, so.
Didn't say it was their decisions right.
Yeah, good point.
So it's actually the 23rd would be a Saturday
Thank
of
you,
March.
thank you.
So that was
I'll send that note out again.
it's gonna, allow time for the planning session discussion too in this part of the agenda. So if y'all,
Yeah, you guys all got the rough agenda I sent, I hope. I'll resend everything again tomorrow or Monday.
So we're all good, even with absences.
Laura's on spring break and, Ron's in Mexico.
But we haven't
Sorry,
heard from
Kelly,
Mike.
I'll be in London. I won't be here.
I wanna call.
Yeah, I got that, Laura, on spring break.
Could you email me Mikey's phone number? I just actually like to call him and make sure he's okay, because he's been so faithful. And the fact we haven't
That's
heard
a
from
person
him
is from a long time.
concerns me.
Yeah, I will remind you, Joe, you have your ePort site that's got your roster and contact information on it. Do you remember how to get to that?
Oh, you're sort of, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, that's another thing we could do is try to.
Yeah, that would be good. Pull me into the 21st century.
We educate everybody.
It's not on his Franklin, forget it. Right?
Yeah, if I might crack a joke at Jerry, the same thing.
I'm still doing it. You know, this guy was my, gosh, right after I first started, I think, everybody, in those days, everybody had a Franklin planner.
And I taught them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was teaching the class.
I still only use one paper towel when I wash my hands too.
Good, yeah.
Oh, I've gone to not using them at all. Shake, 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 shake.
I don't know.
Yeah, too much
Wash your
TMI,
hands.
TMI,
Don't use paper, just walk out.
or do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe,
Well,
I
you
still
go
shake my
shake,
hands
shake,
10
shake.
times.
Pop, 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 pop,
Laura,
pop,
Laura
pop,
said she does the same
and
thing.
walk out. What'd you say, Laura?
I said I still shake my hands 10 times after watching Joe's TED Talk.
Yes, yeah.
Joe, it was an issue.
I'm up to 5 million people.
Yeah, our-
Really? That's awesome.
most of the restrooms in this facility, and especially this building, don't
Yeah,
have paper
blowers now.
anymore, yeah.
And I fold the paper like you were talking about too, if I do.
All right.
Anything else for Chris?
Any other noise work?
Okay, with that, we'll see you guys in May.
Yeah, May 9th at 7.
No, we'll see each other in March.
The whole group.
It's written on the bottom of it.
Yeah,
It
yes.
should be in
Yeah,
April.
the next regular CNAC meeting with public participation, everything else will be May.
Yeah. Unless,
So the training.
As we
meeting,
change everything.
Annual meeting starts.
and I
May.
assume you make notes of all the things we suggested tonight
Not if you want me in
and
it.
discuss.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Can I get a copy of the?
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Sure. Yeah. Mainly the one page that outlines the